Hi and welcome to Last Watch. Today I'd like to share a hidden treasure with you and a bit of a guilty secret. I've had this beast of a watch for a few months now, but I've been so busy enjoying it that I keep forgetting to do a review. The watch in question is the Citizen Signature Grand Touring Sport, reference NB1031-53L. Citizen are synonymous with their affordable eco-drive quartz watches, so you may be surprised to hear that this watch is an automatic. In fact, it has an in-house automatic movement that Citizen have kept all to themselves, but we'll come to that shortly. First impressions. I think the majority of people will look at the crown guards on this watch and be under the false impression that it takes its design cues from Panerai. If anything though, I would say it has been heavily influenced by the Omega Ploprof. It certainly has Omega-like quality and finish. In fact, the first time I saw pictures of this watch, the Omega Seamaster 300 Master Coaxial is what sprung to mind. Mainly due to the split design of the bezel, on closer inspection I was taken aback to find out that this was a Citizen. Even more so when I saw its size and recommended retail price, both of which made it very easy for me to give this watch a wide berth. That being so, how did I end up with it in my collection? Well, I was going out for a coffee at a local shopping centre, and I was walking past a very cheap jewellery shop when something caught my eye. Now this is pretty impressive because I must have been about 20 feet away, and this watch was on display inside the shop, not even in the window. I went in to give it a closer look, and my suspicions were raised, but I still wasn't sure what I was looking at. I asked the lady in the shop to put it to one side for me, and told her I would be back promptly with a decision. There was a coffee shop pretty much next door, so I popped in for a latte and did a quick search on the internet to confirm my suspicions. Now you have to bear in mind that I spend months chewing over which watch I want to spend money on. I'm not a spur of the moment type of guy, especially when it comes to buying myself stuff. In any case, I finished my latte, went back to the shop and paid for this gorgeous blue watch. And why did I buy it so quickly? Well, I know the retail price of this watch is around £850. If you shop around, you might get it cheaper. This watch was down as having a recommended retail price of £279, but was priced to clear at an astonishing £110. I reckon I had nothing to lose. If I didn't like the watch, then I wouldn't have any problem selling it on eBay for a profit. As far as I can tell, this watch has been around since 2014. It's considered a driver's watch, but I would say it's an over-engineered dive watch. It's a step above the usual offerings from Citizen in both quality and finish. The thing that strikes you first with this watch is its sheer size. It's a big watch, and so far the biggest in my collection. It's likely to remain so. It's advertised as a 44mm watch, but it's quite hard to find a spot where you can get a true measure. I ended up measuring this watch from the back and got a width of 44.9mm. If you include the crown guard, that width will jump up to an incredible 51.9mm. It has a lug-to-lug of 50.7mm, a lug width of 22.8mm, and a thickness of 14.5mm. It is by no means a shrinking violet, but the surprising thing is that it wears smaller than its dimensions. It has a cushion-style case and quite nicely turned down lugs which help this watch to melt into my 7-inch wrist. It's a perfect fit. I would hazard a guess though that if you have a smaller wrist than myself, then you may struggle to carry this watch off. The case is very well done. It has a mix of both rounded and sharp edges, both brushed and polished. There's a step-up raised polished edge to the case which acts like a frame around the watch. Its highly polished mirror finish pops even more due to the predominantly brushed case behind it. If the case stopped there, then I think this watch would be perfect, but they've finished it with an oversized crown guard and cover. This has a latch-like system which allows you to pull out the cover a few millimeters to gain access to a fairly decent sized crown. However, the guards do a very good job of getting in the way, and I'm always very worried that I may misthread the crown while screwing it in, as it feels gritty at times. The quite proud 60-click unidirectional bezel has a polished edge which is broken up into 10 segments of coin edging, making it very easy to grip. It has a reassuring, audible, deep clicking sound. Although secure between clicks, there is a slight bit of backplay. The bezel, a bit like an Omega Seamaster, is split into two. It has an inner chrome border with blue indices marking the first 15 minutes, then every 5 minutes after. The outer edge has an aluminium insert very much the same colour blue as the previous inner edge markers. This blue bezel is broken up with Arabics denoting the 5, 10 and 15 minute positions, continued by 10-minute intervals at the 20, 30, 40 and 50 markers. The 12 o'clock position has an inverted trapeze shape with a round cutout for some painted loom. The elephant in the room here is a quite noticeable scratch at the 11 o'clock position. I bought the watch in this condition. It also came in a generic Citizen box, not the luxury box denoting a signature watch. And that is why I got such a good price on it. I have since had a valuation to replace the bezel, yes, the whole bezel, as apparently I've been informed that the inlay and bezel come as one. The price for replacement? £90. So if I carry out the repair, then the watch will have cost me £200. I'm still undecided as to whether I should do this. Let me know what you think. The dial of this watch is just stunning. I'm quite conservative when it comes to watches, so this watch is a real guilty secret of mine. It's way too blingy for me and I love it. The dial is a deep blue and can look quite muted, but when the light catches it just right, you can see that it has a radial sunburst effect, a bit like the new Seiko Blue Alpinist. The hour markers are what I would describe as a wonderful shiny faceted stepped indices that are a mix of brushed and polished finish, which catch the light in 100 different ways, and they're topped off on the outer edge with a dash of loom. We have an applied Citizen logo just below the 12 o'clock position. Just above the 6 o'clock position, we have a print announcing that this watch is an automatic with a water resistance of 300 meters. Look deeper, then you begin to realize that this is a sandwich dial, as the date window is set below a framed window, which at first looks white, but on closer inspection has an effervescence to it, a slightly silvery shimmer. The date itself is inverted white on a black background. On realizing that this is a sandwich dial, you then notice that the top layer has finely cut out indices marking the chapter ring minute positions underneath. The first 15 being a very deep, almost blood orange red, the remaining 45 seconds being white. The rehaut is finished in the same colour blue as the dial, with markers denoting every second position, slightly thicker at the 5 markers. The handset are what I would describe as a bold pipette shape with a pronounced sharp point. The hour hand has a brushed silver frame, whereas the minute hand is a very juicy orange. Both hands are inlaid with painted loom. The second hand has a strong arrow shape, the rear of which is quite decorative and reminds me of a paperclip. The piece de resistance is that this wonderful dial is kept safe by an almost invisible sapphire glass, with the best anti-reflective coating I've yet to come across. The sweep of the second hand moves at 4 Hz, 28,800 beats per hour or 8 beats a second, which leads us neatly to the rear of the watch. This is where we find a sapphire display caseback, allowing us to see a somewhat decorated movement, the 24 jewel Citizen caliber 9012. This movement is exclusive to the signature range. It has a power reserve of 42 hours and is seen as their equivalent to an ETA 2824. However, I would add that I have 2 watches with an ETA 2824 movement. They are both accurate to within a second or 2 each day. Sadly, the Citizen just can't compete as it's running somewhere between 8 to 10 seconds fast per day. The 9012 movement is nothing special to look at, but it does have a nicely decorated unidirectional skeleton rotor, with what looks like an eagle or a griffin with outspread wings. Something you might expect to see on a German watch rather than a Japanese one. The design around the circumference of the display caseback looks a bit like a bullet belt, and although this case has a diver-style screw-down caseback, I understand that the dressier models in the signature range use this bullet-style engraving to unthread their cases. Again, most of the selling points of this watch can be read in clear detail on the back. Moving on to the bracelet, in its basic form it's a 3-link bracelet, but due to its clever design and the way it changes between polished and brushed, it could easily pass as a 6-link bracelet. Like the watch, it's fairly substantial. With a thickness of 3.3 millimeters, it starts with a width of 22.8 millimeters at the lugs and tapers to 20.4 millimeters at the deploying clasp. The end links are solid and follow the same curved shape of the rear of the case. The links can be adjusted with the removal of some fairly solid screws. I should point out that the bracelet has both half and full size links, but there is no micro adjustment or diver style extension. The locking clasp is a double push button affair with no safety or fold over latch. Once closed, it is pretty seamless with no sharp edges and is finished with a laser engraved Citizen script. The The deployment inside is milled, and this has to be one of the most comfortable bracelets that I've worn, and I think this is helped by the contoured shape of the links on the reverse. As you've probably already guessed, I love this watch. It's one of my favourite watches in my collection, but it's not perfect. There is some definite room for improvement. It's a big lump of metal, it's solid on the wrist, and you know it can take a knock if need be, but it can feel heavy when you first put it on. Resized for my 7-inch wrist, it weighs in at 193 grams. I don't think there's any need for this watch to be so big, especially as the movement takes up so little space inside the case. They could easily shave off a few millimeters from the size of this case, but if that's not possible, then why not do away with the over-the-top crown guards? I think this watch at 42mm would be unbeatable. Does it really need to be 300 meters water resistant? After all, as a Grand Tourer, it's not even considered to be a dive watch. Some micro adjustment on the bracelet would be great. Considering how over engineered this watch is, I'm surprised they overlooked this on what is a fantastic bracelet. Improve the accuracy out of the box. This is Citizen's top tier automatic movement, and although at plus 10 seconds per day isn't bad, I expected better. The loom on this watch isn't great. It's decent, but given that I have a Citizen Eco Drive diver's watch, which has by far superior loom compared to this, it could do better. That being the case, I still love the watch, and if you can get it at a good price, you should do so. I should add that there is another version of this watch in black and gold if that's what takes your fancy. This signature watch has been a complete game changer for me. It made me reevaluate my thoughts about big watches and the old adage of trying before you buy. Which watches have you done a complete 180 on? Thanks for watching. Keep liking and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so, and let me know whether you think I should replace the bezel on this Grand Touring Sport. Oh, and keep an eye out for my next video coming soon.